Alright, how's it going, friends and family? This is my first time using my new MacBook, so if it's a little wonky, you gotta forgive me, okay? In this video, it's gonna be a two-part thing, okay? In the first half, we're gonna be going over a business operation opportunity that I missed the boat on that I truly regret. Because very recently, it has come to my attention, they are ripping to the skies, and I had every opportunity to invest in, I just did not. And in the second half, you ask and you shall receive. I'm a man of the people. I'll be going over my experience living in Japan for the past 4 years, by the way, and the stuff that I did not like. It's a pretty long laundry list. So if that sounds good with you, let's go ahead and get into it. So right before baby girl was born, I'm the first time dad. I know the face looks young. You're like, how are you a dad? I'm in my mid-30s. But anyways, right before she was born in October, I was really fascinated by the buy now, pay later landscape. If you're eyeballing to get a Chipotle burrito for like $10, or in this case, a new Apple MacBook, that'll set you back like $1,500. Instead of paying all of it up front, you can pay for it in monthly or weekly installments. So a little bit at a time. And the kicker is, most of these buy now, pay later providers, they don't charge interest on that loan. Instead, they make their money by charging the merchants. Much like Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover, they get a cut of the pie. So no matter how big or small the transaction is, they usually get like 3.25%, sometimes as high as like 4%. It's quite literally the definition of a toll booth cash flow money-making machine. And back in October, before we went to the hospital, I uploaded back-to-back videos talking about the buy now, pay later industry. And essentially, if you don't want to watch the deep dive videos that I made, they're in the business of giving micro loans to consumers who do not want to use a credit card or a debit card or pay with cash, like physical cash. They would rather do it through Sezzle, Affirm, Klarna, or even through PayPal. They have an integrated buy now, pay later. Now, unfortunately for me, after my daughter was born, life got so busy that I never got around to figuring out an entry price point for Sezzle. So based on my understanding of the landscape, that's the one I was laser focused on. I'm the most bullish about. You know what I'm saying? So much got on my plate, and then Sezzle went on my back burner, and I just kind of forgot about them until today. So what you see on your screen right now, they're currently trading for about $167 a share. If we zoom back and take a look at when they IPO'd, debuted on the stock market as a publicly listed investment opportunity, meaning if you're a shareholder, you're an owner of this business. August of 2023, total return for the past 3 years, we're talking about 1,100%. Absolutely bonkers. Now, if we just zoom back in and take a look at the past 1 year, when I uploaded the videos about Sezzle, they were roughly, like $77, $75 a share, and then they nosedived and reached the low of roughly $49.50. Why did I not pull the trigger? Friends and family, take a look at this. If we zoom in 6 months, 120% into the green. 120%. So you can see why I'm saying, man, I really regret not following up on Sezzle. And nobody asked me to look into them. This is just one of those things where I just do market research all the time. And it's one of the companies that I really, really fancy. Then I was like, the risk to reward ratio, yes, it's a little risky because it's a fintech company, but the numbers that they're executing. So if we hop on over to the income statement, also known as the P&L, the profit and loss, like how much money does this business make, but also baking in the overhead costs deducted from it, like what do you walk away with? That's the bottom line. But before we get to that point, taking a look at the top line, why is it called the top line? Because revenue, the gross sales, how much money the operation makes as a whole is the very first line in the P&L. And they're growing at a rate of 46% year over year. And then as we swipe on down with the MacBook trackpad, I'm trying to get used to it. I'm a Windows PC kind of guy. But I don't even need a mouse for this because between you and me, it's pretty darn good. But the guy that I bought the MacBook from, he gave me a mouse, so eventually I'll get around to figuring out how to use it. Their earnings per share, otherwise known as the profits per share, once you bake in all of the accounting costs to run the business, is $4.04. So if you take a look at the growth of it, why is it not? So if you take a look at the growth of it year over year, 60%. And then in the year prior was 69%. In contrast, if you take a look at their competition, I don't know why I'm projecting my voice, because right now I'm using the MacBook's microphone to record my voice, while at the same time I'm using my iPhone to record the video. So hopefully it turns out good and crisp. Probably not. I'm still waiting on my supplies and my gear to arrive from Japan. It's stuck in customs. So pulling up Klarna, their revenue growth is pretty respectable as well. I mean, take a look at fiscal year 2023. That's hilarious, right? $1.9 million in the entirety of 2022. And then when you jump on over to 2023, it jumped up to 2.2 billion, and that was an increase of 119,000%, which is kind of crazy. But if you scroll on down and take a look at their situation, they're unprofitable. They're burning through cash to stay alive. They're struggle boating right now, and they just IPO'd. To make matters worse, take a look at the maximum timeline. They IPO'd in September at about $42, or I guess it says right there, $57.20. Since then, they've just been falling like a knife, but actually since February, they've been recovering. So if I do 6 months back, 3 months back, then 46% in the green. If you bought the dip, I did not buy the dip.
Stocks that compound and dividends, please. Welcome to investing with a side of cheese, where balance sheets matter and cash flows get fatter. But hey, I'm not a financial advisor.
And the other big buy now, pay later player is Affirm. And take a look at 1 year, or sorry, 6 months, 3 months, 71% in the green. So the buy now, pay later players crushing it. In comparison, if we take a look at some of the blue chip household favorites, I mean, I like them as well, okay? I'm not a hypocrite. I like Visa. 3 months, 14%, which is modest. MasterCard, 3 months is 4%. And American Express is probably going to be struggling because the whole discretionary spending is tightening up for the consumers with the economic situation of tariffs, the Iran crisis with gas inflating the price of everything because the global supply chain is contingent upon fuel prices. Because how do you think you get your toothpaste to your local Walmart? Right? There's a truck driver driving in it. The cost of fuels goes up. You best darn believe that the merchants and the retailers, they're going to bake that in to make up for it. And that's why the price of everything is going up. But also the pending interest rate cuts. Dude, there's some people out here, if you look at the prediction markets, they think it's going to go up. So instead of getting a cut, now it's going to go up. So it's a whole fiasco and a debacle, and that's why American Express, MasterCard, Visa, not doing too hot. But out of those three, personally, my favorite is American Express. Reason being is when there is an economic downturn happening, the consumer masses, right? The 80% of society, people just walking around, sometimes they may or may not wipe their butthole after dropping number 2, so it smells. 80% of them, their lifestyle and what they spend and swipe their card for drastically changes. Whereas when you think about the top 1%, the top 5%, the ones that are their household income is above at least like 150, 180 grand a year, taking everything into consideration, their lifestyle doesn't really change. Unless, of course, they're laid off or if, unfortunately, their industry takes a huge hit. But physicians, lawyers, engineers, doctors, the directors, senior directors, and vice presidents at an S&P 500 usually save. Unless you work in marketing or sales, they're usually the first to go because, believe it or not, there's a hierarchy of teams and orgs in corporate America that are laid off when times get hard. The first ones to go, usually the sales team, the marketing team, people that are working with advertising in general, and then it goes down the line. The ones that are the safest, usually the actuaries, the financial team, and then somewhere in the middle, human resources, HR. Oh, also the first ones to get let go, recruiters, talent acquisition. I digress. And by the way, if you want to learn more about Klarna, Affirm, and Sezzle, can you tell that I have ADHD? Okay, I've been living with it for 35 years. There are some pros, but obviously there are some cons jumping all over the place. Do go watch the Buy Now, Pay Later videos that I uploaded on the channel in October, and it kind of breaks down the differences of like what makes this so special or them different. But all that to say, if we are truly in a recession, in an economic downturn, I think the rich people are going to continue to live their lifestyle as is, right? And American Express, yes, they do have cards and products and offerings catered towards normal individuals, but for the most part, American Express, usually high net worth clientele. So for me, I like American Express because somehow they have a little cushion during the bad times, but obviously a growth catalyst during the good times. I think MasterCard for me would be the last pick out of the three, mostly because MasterCard is associated with credit cards. Visa with debit card purchases, when times get hard and you're making a one-for-one transaction that's directly from your bank in order to purchase gas or groceries, I think that goes on versus MasterCard credit cards. I guess the same argument can be made for people that are struggling or paycheck to paycheck, use that MasterCard credit card because you can just default on it. But then again, that's bad for business for MasterCard in another way too, right? So for me, American Express, Visa, MasterCard. All else being equal, I would not pick MasterCard. But anyways, 3 months, about roughly 10%. So the blue chip financial services, payment processing companies, not as hot as the buy now, pay later. I just freaking regret not investing in Sezzle. But since the buy now, pay later landscape video was uploaded in October, something did happen, and it's primarily why Sezzle is just crushing it right now. I mean, once again, 3 years, 1,100% into the green is just phenomenal. I had to make sure that OBS is still recording. And the reason why they're crushing the competition is because they changed their business model to incorporate a subscription model for their customers. I think it's called Sezzle Premium. And by paying into it every month, that monthly fee, you get to shop at other merchants that aren't a part of their network. Because with buy now, pay later, they usually partner and make relationships with like big retailers like Best Buy, Amazon, Walmart, or whatever. So you can't go outside of that network and at the same time use buy now, pay later. You can only use it for certain transactions, products, and merchants. But by paying into the subscription service, it opens the door to anything. Burger King, gas, pizza at the Costco food court, whatever it is. And because they diversify their cash flow from strictly charging the merchants, I think off of memory, it was like 3%, Wall Street is eating it up. Sezzle, to begin with, they were profitable, right? Take a look at their EPS situation. They've been profitable since 2023, but now as an asset-light operation, they're not out here manufacturing cars or tanks or eyewear, right? They're in the business of making money with money, but now they also have a growing loyal customer base that's willing to pay to become a subscriber to Sezzle Premium. Case in point, if you take a look at the metrics that tell you whether or not they're being wise with their money, every time I zoom in, it looks all choppy, so I'll stop doing that. If I swipe up here and I show you what I'm looking at, the return on equity, 80%. Return on assets, 38%. Return on invested capital, that's my favorite one. Golden standard, around 15%. In a perfect scenario, 20% or higher. 68%. Return on capital employed, 60%. This is a company that by all regards and metrics absolutely crushing it. And their trading multiple at a 42, not bad. All else being equal, I'll say this right now, I'll stand on this hill. Similar numbers are being executed by Palantir. I guess you could say their trading multiple is a little more fat, but all else being equal, I would rather invest in Sezzle versus Palantir. I do think Palantir is high quality, but my whole thing with Palantir, even though the business is businessing, meaning it's a cash generating monster, I think the public perception is really negative towards the CEO and what their business is doing. And the business itself has aligned to a certain side of the political aisle, to the point where when I think of myself as wanting to buy a business operation, when I see that, dude, I get scared. Because every single time a business makes the mistake of being too political, they alienate and they eradicate 50% of the potential customer base. Meaning, not too long ago, they shot themselves in the foot. Target. Target is probably the most famous blue chip discretionary spending retail chain. I wouldn't even say they're a competitor to Walmart. I think Walmart and Amazon are pretty much rivals. Target, to me, I think of them as more of a peer to like Macy's, JCPenney's, Marshall's, TJ Maxx, or Ross. Because you go into a Target, not necessarily for groceries and household essentials, but you go in there to buy a new pair of cute pants, right? Or to buy furniture, or to buy home decor. And obviously with due time, they have started to recover. The past 1 year, 31% in the green, year to date, 36%. But let me show you this. Prior to that recovery, they were selling off beyond belief because they kept flip-flopping the political aisle, and both sides started to boycott them on social media. So whenever I see a company make that mistake, I run for the hills. Another one would be Nike. This one is a more complex situation because their core customer base, the Jordan sneakerheads, they no longer want to wear Nikes, which is crazy. But prior to that, they aligned themselves with one side of the political aisle to the point where they alienated an entire potential customer base. Nike, Target, Palantir. I mean, right now, the current party in power, they love Palantir. But by taking a quick look at the prediction markets, the midterm elections, they're thinking it's going to be a Democrat sweep across the board. And once the government butts in seats start changing, I'm kind of scared about the funding projects for Palantir. But then again, I looked at the Palantir like 3 weeks ago, and their commercial line of business is exploding in growth. So even if they do lose the government contracts, if they can sustain and promote their commercial growth with like S&P 500 companies or internationally, they should have a lifeline. But again, I just feel uncomfortable going near a company that doesn't stay neutral politically. Like Walmart, you'll never see them aligning heavily publicly to one side of the aisle, right? And besides, if we want to talk about the software landscape, like yes, Palantir is really high quality, but there are others that are also very cheap right now that I would rather be looking at. Mainly Microsoft, Meta, S&P Global, SAP, to a lesser extent Oracle for their legacy line of business. Not too comfortable with the amount of debt that they have. I think it's hideous and it's absolutely horrifying. Like, it's scary. If in fact OpenAI becomes who they say they're going to become, Oracle easily $500 a share within 2 years. But I mean, right now I think everyone is a little spooked out by the AI bubble, data center spending, and capex from the hyperscalers. So Oracle for me is kind of like, I'm on the fence, 50-50. Another software company that I would consider before Palantir would be ServiceNow. It's tier 2. It's the enterprise backbone that connects all the different organizations in a company together. But I digress. Let's circle back to talking about Sezzle. $167 a share. Friends and family, the reason why I'm making this video is I don't think they're undervalued anymore. I think at the time of making that video in October, I think they're trading multiple. I think it was like a teen number, like 14, 15, 16. And even then I had some hesitation, and I was gonna look at the technical analysis indicators to figure out my entry point, but life got busy. So I missed the boat. However, there are always other opportunities in the stock market. There's thousands of publicly traded companies. That's why I never lose sleep if one potential stock goes to the sky and I missed it. Because investing, to me, I think of it as like fishing. You gotta be patient. If you're patient, the right opportunity will come along and it'll be undervalued, and there'll be a big buffer from their inherent worth to what they're trading for right now. Like, if my math and my calculation says they should be $150 a share, but they're currently $75, I'm gonna take that bet every day of the week. But you gotta be patient. If you're impatient and you allow your emotions to override your decision-making process, you're gonna get FOMO. You're gonna start jumping into random crap. For instance, I think right now it's a small little pullback and they'll probably rebound. But for instance, thinking about Micron, right? People that got emotional and was like, dude, I'm missing the boat, I gotta get in, without thinking about how they had a run-up of over 200% in 7 months. And you bought into Micron at like, $1,200, and you're seeing your portfolio go in the red. And between you and me, I've been there before. Your stomach is probably turning and you're probably having trouble sleeping at night. Like, oh my gosh, did I just buy it at the top as they go all the way back down to 500, 400 a share? Realistically, I think with their forward trading multiple being a 6 and their PE being a 21, if they do go down to 500, even I might enter and open a position. I think right now it's just a pullback because the current administration announced that the ceasefire is now off. I think everybody across the board was selling off this week. It is what it is. But regardless, what I'm trying to say is instead of emotions guiding your decisions into buying into businesses, don't just think of these as tickers, right? Literally think of it as if you are buying into this business to be a part-time owner, to be there to the thick and thin, at least like a 3 to 5 year horizon. So with that framework in mind, you wouldn't just pay any willy-nilly price, right? You would be strategic and be tactical in when to deploy your capital. That way the upside is a lot higher than the downside. That's asymmetric investing in a nutshell. With Micron, yes, I do see them having the potential to hit 1,500 by end of the year, but I could also see them pulling back all the way to 500. So to buy them at 1,200 a share, for me, is a no-go. But at the same time, if I were looking for another misunderstood business with upside, I'd be looking at Mobility Global. Let me pull it up right here. Ticker symbol MBGL, which became a publicly traded company in June 26th. It used to belong to the S&P Global family. It was a spinoff. And they make revenue through multiple different vehicles and lines of business. Primarily, number one, through Carfax, which here in the US, it's essentially the history of a vehicle, like all of the maintenance records, accidents, recalls, and everything else. Because before you buy a car, it would behoove of you to order a Carfax to take a look at its track record. Because you don't know, this dude might have gone 40,000 miles prior to changing the oil. Or he might have never have done any of the interval maintenance that's recommended by the manufacturer. So the Carfax would show you proof in the pudding they did it. Unless, of course, you're anything like me, if you take care of your stuff by yourself, you save quite a lot of money, but that also doesn't get uploaded onto the Carfax. So it can't be used as biblical truth. And that's why talking to the owner, you really get to learn and understand, did they take care of the vehicle or not. So that's number one. And the used car market in the US, it's booming. The prices are stupid. Ask me how I know. Dude, I just bought a minivan and it was ridiculously overpriced. And it's a direct ramification of the pandemic and the supply chain debacle. And I think the used car prices are going to stay high for the foreseeable future because of the sticky inflation rate, but also the float. Like the inventory of available used cars is getting smaller and smaller because more and more people are hanging on to their cars. Like in the past, I think the general rule of nipple was to get rid of your car before it hits 100,000 miles so that the next person can deal with the headaches, like replacing the timing belt, the fuel pump, and everything else. You don't have to deal with it, right? Now we're seeing a pattern of more people pedal to the metal, seeing if they can hit 200,000, 300,000. So as more people are hanging on to their cars, and the car manufacturers selling 60, I think that's the average retail price of a new vehicle purchased here in the US, $60,000. Who the heck can afford that, by the way? That's crazy. So they're making less cars, but charging more for fewer cars sold, and they're making record profits. And with a growing population in the US, it boils down to supply and demand. There's more drivers than there are cars available, and that's why the prices are going through the roof. And also, global mobility, they sell data that Ford, Toyota, and GM use to forecast how many vehicles to make of each model and trim. Because the worst thing that a car manufacturer wants to do, I think Ford is really guilty of this, is to overproduce, over-manufacture, and pump out too many cars for 2026. So let's say they make 10,000 F-150s because they forecasted 10,000 would sell, but by the end of the year, they're going to have to start throwing down clearance deals and sales and offers to get them off the lot if by the end of the year, there's still 1,500, right? So car manufacturers, they want to be precise on how many vehicles to make for each model, contingent upon their data that they sell them. So if you get my drift, the real asset that Mobility Global has, it's not just about cars. They're in the business of selling information, data, and analytics. And when you think about the car market, there's so many different variables and stakeholders, right? There's used car dealerships, there's lenders, the ones that are giving the car notes. There's the automakers, the car rental companies like Enterprise, Hertz Car Insurance. It's a pretty big industry. And by being at the center of all of them, with all that data that they sell right back to them, makes me pretty bullish. Based on my understanding, they're pretty similar to V-Risk Analytics, which is a company, I don't know if we talked about it on the channel, but definitely talked about it on the Patreon. I wanted to buy them, but they never reached the price point that I wanted to buy them at. I think it was like, what was it, 125? I think the lowest that they hit was 155, and that's okay. As I said earlier, there's other fish in the sea. And what V-Risk Analytics does, every car insurance company, they pull all of their data together while having V-Risk in the center of it. That way they can all share their information, analyze it, digest it, poop it out to understand what rates to give particular demographics or particular cars or specific zip codes. And all of the car insurance companies, Geico, USAA, State Farm, they do that because by utilizing shared information, it gives you a more complete picture rather than just relying on your own, right? And so circling back to Mobility Global, MBGL, and here's the biggest reason for me. When you think about it, the competition with the Chinese automakers, the EVs, right now, they're making cars that are almost as good as Tesla, Rivian, Polestar for a fraction of the cost. And so as that competition intensifies, every major automaker here in the US, they're going to be under more pressure to be strategic with the decisions that they make in terms of pricing, production, supply chains, procurement, and sourcing and making their EV batteries. They can't just willy-nilly just spend, because they're going to lose that battle to the Chinese EVs. And in order to make the right decisions, they're going to have to pay Mobility Global, okay? Me personally, I'm already invested in them because I got a handful of shares from the S&P Global position that I had from the spinoff. But here's a freebie. I usually put the price points only for the Patreon, but if you made it to this point in the video, here's a freebie. I'm going to acquire more shares. Well, I want to. I might not pull the trigger if there's other opportunities. $15. If in fact they drop to 15 bucks and their forward trading multiple, let's see, 15 divided by $1.67, which is next year's profits per share, their forward trading multiple should be a 9. Once it hits that single digit number for me, I think I'm going to buy more. And now at this point in the video, I'm going to be talking about and sharing my experience of, here's the thing. Do not label me as someone that's ungrateful and a brat, unappreciative, a complainer, a Karen. I'm really not. I try to look at life with an optimistic lens. But brother, let me tell you this. After 4 years, dude, I was itching. You know that itch you get? I was like, please, can I go back to the US? And so even though I'm in the deep south right now and it's hot as heck, it's humid, and there's practically nothing to do, I'm happy. So I just cannot wait to leave Japan. I'm going to be going over my laundry list. This part I'll try to keep short and simple because obviously Dividend Compounders with Cheese is more of a financial stock market platform. It's not really a Japan living abroad thing, but I said, if you guys want to see it, I'll make it. And so this is for the 2 of you that requested it. Reason number 1, I have never seen a society that produces more plastic than Japan. Almost everything and anything that you purchase is just 5 layers of plastic everywhere. Just absurd amounts to the point where it gets annoying. Reason being is they have like a 20 system recycling distribution endpoint. Like in the US, there's recyclables and then there's trash. In Japan, there's literally 20 different bins that you gotta sort your trash into because of all the insane amounts of plastic. Like, why not just produce less plastic to begin with so you don't have to go gung-ho recycling? It never made sense to me. And I lived near the beach, or I guess near the ocean. I guess the entirety of Japan is near the ocean, right? The Pacific Ocean borders them. But anyways, whenever we went to the beach, it would just be scattered and littered with plastic everywhere because of their production of plastic for everything. And like even if you buy a piece of fruit, like an apple, it'll be packaged up in plastic and then saran wrap over it. It's like, what in the hemoglobin? Why are we doing that? Number 2, now this is a me thing, okay? Maybe some of you can relate to it, I don't know. In almost every product, I'm not exaggerating, at the grocery store or at the restaurants, I had to be careful in the end because once I figured out what was going on, I was like, what in the heck? They put fake sugar alcohol in the most unpredictable food and dishes. Yes, even in ramen. Yes, even in curry. Yes, even in burgers and ketchup. And when I say sugar alcohols, I'm talking about stuff that's lab made, that your body, some of you can digest it with no problem. But there's other people like me where it's an issue and problematic. So some sugar alcohols would be like aspartame, sucralose, and some other ones, right? And whenever I have that, it gives me huge cysts on my skin. So if you refer to my past videos and you see like a big old pimple, usually the consequence of eating fake sugar. Now here in the US, we don't really put fake sugar. We just go ahead and put the real sugar that leads to diabetes. But come to find out, there's also an alternative to sweeten stuff without issues. That's monk fruit extract and stevia. But that costs more, right? And so companies would rather use fake lab-made sugars that cause a whole lot of issues. And for other people, it actually gives them diarrhea. So if you look at the packaging carefully for candy, for snacks, for packaged food, anywhere in Japan, sometimes there's warnings that say this may give you diarrhea, and still they do it. It just blows my mind. And then the next one, I think if you're an American or Canadian, you're gonna be able to relate to me on this. Like whenever you drive your car, you expect other people to know the rules of the road and to go with the flow of the traffic, to know what the right of way is, right? In Japan, all of that goes right out the window. There is literally no etiquette, meaning even on the highway, right? When cars are going like 50, 60, 70 kilometers per hour, they will stop in the middle of the road to do whatever it is they need to do. Instead of pulling over, instead of, taking the next exit to make it more safe for everyone, they will stop their car in the middle of the road and stop traffic. And that happened at least once to 5 times a day, every day. Now, I use the bicycle, but whenever I traveled with the wife and the baby, I'd be in the car, and just having to witness that and experience it, I'm not gonna lie to you, my hairline receded just by a little bit, because I was like, what are they doing? Why would you stop your car? And what would infuriate me even more is 5 feet away, there would be an empty parking lot to like a 7-Eleven or to a department store, but instead of going in over there, they would just stop their car in the middle of the freaking road. And another thing about their car driving culture that just gives me like hair all over my butt cheeks is they do zipper merge. So instead of listening to the flow of traffic in the right of way, they will literally stop to allow one car to pass. So it's like a 4-way stop sign all the time. So even though your road, you should get to your destination, Google Maps says 5 minutes, because of the zipper merge culture, it will take 15 minutes, and that's no exaggeration, because one car will go and then the next car will go. Even though you have the green light, you have the right of way, doesn't matter. And something else about Japan that drove me up a wall. Now, this happened in 2022 when we had to sign up for a phone plan. It might have changed, but most of the major phone service providers, they charge you for every single text and call. There's no such thing as unlimited like here in the US. They charge us for the data. But in Japan, they charge you for every text, every call, and every bit of data that you use. And I kept thinking like, dude, if you think phone bills are expensive in the US and Japan, it's a whole different level. And then this next point is an emphasis of my issue with how much plastic they use for everything. So specifically, I wrote, the Japanese lids for yogurts, for food, for drinks, very flimsy, and it's not secure packaging. Like if you have a lid on, you would expect it to be able to go into your grocery bag, and if it turns on its side, to be okay. But in Japan, because it's made for a one-time use and then to be recycled in the next like 6 hours, if it turns on its side, it's gonna spill everywhere. And my whole thing is, let me just sit up straight in my chair. If you're going to make plastic, at least make it to be durable, to be reusable. In Japan, almost all the plastic for everything, food or for entertainment or household essentials, it's not reusable. Me, I'm a cheap son of a gun because I don't really make that much money, so we reuse our plastics for other stuff. So sometimes we'll reuse the Greek yogurt tub to store leftovers or to store soup. And sometimes if I get a plastic drink and it's pretty good quality and I look at it and the label says, yes, you can reuse it again, I'll reuse it again instead of having to carry around a very heavy tumbler. But in Japan, almost everything that you buy at the grocery store or off the internet, it's not reusable because the plastic is specifically designed and manufactured for obsolescence, for it to be only one-time use, and to reuse it is hazardous. This next issue that I had with Japan is definitely a me thing. I think for other people it won't really matter, but the washing machines in Japan for your dishes, so booty hole, which is kind of crazy. Because some of the Japanese-made stuff like cars is best in class. When we talk about dishwashers, they exist, and we tried out a few. They're so freaking bad. Like you put something in there, and it'll come out with all of it on it. So practically every Japanese family, they just hand wash dishes. For me, I like to be really diligent because I'm a germaphobe, right? And it would take me no less than 30 minutes, upwards of like 70 minutes every day just to wash dishes. So if you live in a country with a dishwashing machine that actually cleans the dishes, you gotta count your blessings. Once I came back to the US, the Airbnb that we're staying in, it has a dishwashing machine. Dude, I was like, sign me up. I'm free. The shackles are off. I don't have to wash dishes, especially with a newborn. Brother, there's a lot of dishes. The next thing, coming from a culture of like promos, clearance, sales, discounts, especially after living in South Korea and experiencing Thailand and whatnot, Japan, every little thing is extra. It costs more. Nothing is complimentary. I'm talking about side dishes, services, everything is an add-on. And if there is a deal or a promo because it's a Western chain operating in Japan like McDonald's, it'll be for like 3% off or 5% off. So when you do the math, it's like 10 cents off. Whereas here in the US, if you get a good deal, it's like 25% off. Sometimes buy one, get one free. In Korea, if you order a specific dish at a restaurant, you'll get a whole bunch of banchan, which are side dishes like kimchi, radish, soup, all for free. Japan, nothing is free. Now this next one is funny, but hear me out. In every Japanese town, it's custom. Okay, the melody, the song, the track, it depends on what the community voted for or what their lineage or history or heritage is about, and they'll have a specific melody. But at 6 a.m., 12 p.m., and 6 p.m., there is a melody that plays on overhead speakers that are supposed to be used for like emergency announcements like tsunamis, earthquakes, or their neighboring country sending something over to them. But they use it to blast music. And sometimes at 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m., they will repeat every 20 minutes a very loud scripted announcement that's like 4 minutes long. So not only do you have the music that's blasting at 6 a.m. when you're trying to sleep, but at 7 a.m., they'll utilize that loud intercom sirens to make sure that you didn't miss the first 50 messages. And sometimes it would annoy the heck out of me because it would be for the most mundane stuff like, oh, hey guys, it's going to be slightly foggy. Here's what you can expect. XYZ, 1, 2, 3, 4. Or, hi guys, it's going to rain. And this type of rain will be half a centimeter. And because it's half a centimeter, I'm like, dude, shut up. Why do you have to blast that? So whenever I would record a video in Japan, sometimes I would have to pause for like an hour and a half, do other tasks, and come back and resume recording because they would be blasting those darn announcements. Now, don't get me wrong. That melody, that song that they play at like 12 p.m. or 6 p.m., it's charming at first when you visit Japan, like, oh my gosh, this is so charming. But I'll tell you this right now. After 4 years, it gets old so fast. Because if you're trying to sleep, just think about it, right? At 6 a.m., like outside of our window was a siren and overhead speaker, so it was loud and clear. I was so over it. I was like, what is wrong? Like, it was like a dystopian nightmare to have songs be playing by the way, it's every single day. Weekends are not off. 6 a.m., 12 p.m., and 6 p.m. Now, this next one for me was probably the deal breaker because I've never lived in a region or an area where it triggered it so badly. Japan, I think outside of it, Okinawa, they don't really have this issue, but after World War II, they used up a lot of their wood and forestry for the war efforts, right? And so they planted a crap ton of foreign trees, but also domestic trees in order to boost their wood supply. Consequently, in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and current tense, they have a dangerous amount of cedar and cypress pollen, to the point where it drastically reduces productivity across the board for, I think it's 55% of the population struggle so much they have to go to a clinic or a hospital to get medication to deal with it. It is that bad. In fact, from January to about the end of May, beginning of June, most office workers at the big corporations, they are given a one-time stipend to do remote work from Okinawa to avoid the pollen. That's how bad it is. It's the first time in my life where I had to use a nasal spray. And I was like, dude, this country and the pollen situation, like most people don't think about it, but pollen in Japan is by far the worst. Now, another thing. Remember how earlier I alluded to I like to use a bicycle? Because number one, we didn't want to buy a second car. But it's my form of cardio, right? So I used my bike to get around town, grocery shopping, whatever. Most parts of Japan, outside of the major cities, there are no sidewalks. So as a guy that walks, runs, and bikes often, dude, it is so dangerous because sometimes you'll be seeing some soccer moms with like 3 kids in their minivan. She'll be texting and driving, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, while riding my bicycle. So the entire country infrastructure, because it wasn't made to support cars. So I feel like a lot of these towns and cities, they were made prior to being car-centric, right? So they can't bake in a sidewalk. And I get the why, but still, no sidewalks for me, another deal breaker. Now here's another one that's kind of fascinating. Most of the homes in Japan, we call them tinfoil houses, literally made out of aluminum foil. And the reason being is that the homes are cheaply made because of the pending natural disasters. Japan, like, man, they're really unlucky with the amount of natural disasters that they're smacked with. But anyways, I'll talk more about that here in a bit. And the reason being, why do they make their houses literally out of tin foil? Not really, but it's really cheap materials. And that's because it's more cost efficient to rebuild a home after it's destroyed by earthquake or a tsunami than it is to build it with high quality materials the first time around. So the home that we lived in, we got so freaking lucky. It was a brand new construction. We were the first family to live in it. And everything in that home was brand new, state of the art, but it was paper thin walls and everything was brittle. Literally, if you put a little bit of pressure, you could break it. Say what you want, talk all the trash that you want, but most American-made homes are pretty high quality. I don't know about the new stuff. I heard that they're cheaply made, especially the ones where they all look identical in a row in a specific block and they're under an umbrella for the HOA. I heard they're not as high quality, but I think outside of like the 1990s downwards, up until like the 1970s, I heard homes were pretty high quality. In Japan, not really the case. Now, the next point is a very specific me issue. I think most of you thinking about Japan or living in Japan, you probably don't have this issue because I lived in the countryside, right? All of my neighbors were farmers. And because it's a rural area, most of them, 90%, they would burn their trash in oil barrel drums. I'm not kidding. Like in the backyard or in the front porch, they would burn all of it, including plastics, doo-doo, food waste, whatever it is. And you could get that fresh, nicely smelling aroma early in the morning. Reason being is that they were taught to do that by their government after World War II because a lot of their infrastructure was destroyed or had to turn into something else to support the war effort. So I think the younger generation, I think people under the age of 40, they don't burn their trash, but most of the people in a rural community, age 45, 55, 65, they were burning their trash and you could smell the burning plastic. It was just no bueno. And another one is so petty I might have to skip it. I'll just read it though. Spiders everywhere. More so than any other geographic location that I have lived in. Not really an issue for most people, but for me it was kind of annoying. I don't kill spiders because I know they do their job of making the webs to catch mosquitoes and flies, so I leave them be. But the amount of webs, it's a lot. And then to circle back on the natural disasters thing with Japan, tsunamis, earthquakes, dude, it's a way of life here. I'm not exaggerating. You look it up, sometimes Japan will get hit with 10 a day when we talk about earthquakes. Usually it's around 5 to 7. Can you imagine that? The place that you live, 5 to 7 earthquakes every single day, 365 days a year. So you got to be careful where you put furniture or decoration because you can leave the house and come back after eating lunch, like, 45 minutes, and some stuff will be scattered all over the floor. And it's not because there's a ghost. It's not because the house is haunted. It's because there was an earthquake. And sometimes it's so freaking bad that everything in your house just starts falling down or falls or rips apart. It was beyond annoying. And with the earthquakes, it would happen at the worst times possible. Like, in a perfect world, could it please happen at 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m. when everybody's awake and alert? No. More often than not, the earthquakes, 5 to 7 a day, it would happen at the hours that you're trying to sleep. 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. So good luck trying to sleep. And with a newborn baby screaming, and then also with an earthquake, some of the worst sleep that I've ever had in my life in Japan. No exaggeration. I wish I was making this up, but yeah. The next point. Now, this is a me issue. For other people, I don't think this is a concern at all. But most water in Japan coming out of the faucets or out of the sink or out of their shower head, very, very hard water. To the point where it would dry out my skin. And when I'm dried up, I would be prone to static shock all the time. And that's even after applying lotion all over my body. Never in my life did I have to religiously apply lotion after every shower or bath. And I had to because in Japan, your skin would get so freaking dry. Now, this is not a me issue for sure because some foreigners, their hair will fall out because the water damages their scalp. And crazy enough, when I first moved to Japan, it gave me eczema all over my neck, my chest, my back, because I didn't know what was going on. It was the hard water. Now, that's the hygiene stuff. But because of the hard water, when you do your laundry, now thank God, Japan actually has laundry machines and dryers. Dishwashers, they do have, but booty hole. The laundry, because it uses hard water, it would come out stiff. And all of your clothes would have static, even if you use fabric softener, even if you hang dry. So by living in Japan, I had to resort to using American Tide, the pods, because it would have water softeners. The Japanese detergent did not take care of the hard water issues. So here in the US, most of our HVAC is built into every room, including the garage and bathrooms to allow ventilation, and that way you're not uncomfortable during summer or winters. In Japan, by the way, I'm in an Airbnb, they fix the bedroom AC, but the downstairs AC is still broken, and that's why I'm filming this in the bedroom. Hopefully they can fix the downstairs. But anyways, in Japan, their HVAC system, I don't know what it's called because I'm not an HVAC guy, but instead of using a central cooling or heating system, they have an HVAC machine in every room, like on the ceiling, except the hallways and the bathrooms. So when you take a shower in the summer in a Japanese bathroom, and mind you, I lived in a brand new house, modern, state of the art to Japanese standards, in the summers, the bathrooms would feel like a sauna. Absolutely hot and miserable because there was no HVAC, right? And in the winters, dude, it was like opening up a refrigerator and walking in. It'd be like, holy moly. And nobody wants to take a cold shower in the winter, right? So by taking a warm shower in Japan bathrooms, I got chilblains every winter as a result. Like towards the end, I figured out that you got to wear 2 layers of socks when you walk into that bathroom, turn on the shower head and let it get warm, and then take your clothes off. Took me 3 years to get to that point. I was stupid. Chilblains is essentially when your extremities, like your fingers and your toes, it's not like frostbite, but it's like the step before it, meaning it gets really hardened, itchy, and it lasts for like 2 to 3 weeks, and your flexibility in the blood flow restricted as you heal from the chilblains. Now, Japan itself, very humid because it's an island at the end of the day, right? But strangely enough, in the winters, the air is so dry, in fact, that I got nosebleeds every winter. Which is crazy because that's the first time in my life that I got a nosebleed just out of the blue. Usually if I get a nosebleed, it's because someone punched me or I got tackled, right? But in Japan, just the thing, it's a way of life. And here's the second to last one. There's no street signs in residential areas or in most public places. And I wish I was kidding, I am not. Like outside of the dense urban cities or tourist attractions in Osaka or Tokyo, of course you're gonna have the street signs, but in most neighborhoods and communities in Japan, they don't have it. So navigation, I was always so freaking annoyed. But eventually you adapt and you travel like a local. So they usually navigate by utilizing landmarks. If you don't have Google Maps, by the way. Apple Maps, not good in Japan. Maybe in Tokyo, but where I lived, no bueno. And I think, again, that ties back to the whole idea of Japan building out their cities and infrastructure prior to cars becoming the main focal point. Whereas with the US, there's street signs everywhere where you could literally say turn left at Banana Balls after you pass this street. Where in Japan, you can't say that. So when you give directions or when you're trying to memorize how to get to point A to point B, you got to remember landmarks. And then the last one, good luck trying to sleep in. They call Japan the rising sun country for a reason, right? Even with blackout curtains, we would have two of them. One right here and another one behind it. The sun is so bright that at 4 a.m., the sun rays will sneak its way past, like through the sides of the curtains, and wake you up. And it got to the point where we started to use eye masks. But if you work night shift, trying to sleep in at 10 a.m., 11 a.m., absolutely a nightmare. Maybe all of these were a me thing, but basically, those were the issues that I had with living in Japan, and I'm happy to never go back or to live there. Maybe visit 20, 30 years down the road, but I have no immediate plans to go back. I would rather visit Korea, China, Hong Kong, Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia before I go back to Japan. Call me crazy. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. And let me know your thoughts and opinions. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments section. I love you guys. Thanks for supporting me. Good luck in the stock market and stay safe, please, in every matter of your life, in your workplace, your personal relationships, but also in the stock market. Anyways, talk to you guys later.